Hello everyone, I'm sharing this story with you from Lagos, Nigeria, a place where even the quiet streets can hide stories powerful enough to shake the hearts of adults. Please stay with me until the very end of this story, because sometimes, to understand true pain, we must see the world through the eyes of a child. In the world of adults, a child's cry is often ignored, but for a 2-year-old, every cry is a plea for help. And the greatest lesson from today's story is this: never underestimate a child's emotions. Never dismiss their fears. What we fail to see is often the very thing that hurts them the most. If you believe stories can help us live better, love deeper, and become more human, then please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and follow me on this journey as I share real-life stories from Nigeria. Every week, I'll bring you powerful tales, sometimes painful, sometimes miraculous, but always real. Thank you for watching till the end. Your support gives me the strength to keep telling stories that touch the heart, from here in Nigeria to audiences around the world. Nighttime in Lagos was quiet in a way that made the wealthy uneasy. Inside billionaire Adekunle's mansion, warm yellow light spilled across every corner of the house, but even that glow wasn't enough to calm the storm tightening in his chest. For 3 weeks now, Zuri, his 2-year-old daughter, who should have been running down the hallways giggling, had turned into a trembling little stone inside the very home meant to protect her. She startled at every sound. She screamed every time someone touched her hand. And worst of all, every night she cried out, "Daddy," in broken, gasping dreams, her voice shaking like someone fleeing from something terrible. The doctor said it was just a sensitive phase in children. But Adekunle, who had seen through dozens of fraudulent contracts, who could read someone's intentions just by the way they smiled, knew better. A father's instinct refused to accept that explanation. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and whatever it was happening right inside a house he believed was absolutely safe. That night, the first sign appeared, close to midnight. As Adekunle walked downstairs for a bottle of water, he casually glanced at the security monitor on the wall. It was a habit born from years of survival. Billionaires never stopped watching. But this time, the footage made him freeze. Aisha, the young maid his wife trusted completely, was standing in the living room. Her eyes darted around nervously, as if terrified of being seen. And when she heard his footsteps coming down the stairs, she jerked, spun around, and hurriedly hid something behind her back. For exactly 1 second, their eyes met through the camera. Aisha forced a shaky smile. Adekunle felt a cold shiver crawl down his spine. He rushed into the living room immediately. But by the time he arrived, the room was empty. No strange object, no noise. Aisha had vanished as if she'd never been there at all. "What were you doing out here this late?" he asked her when he finally saw her in the hallway. Aisha flinched just slightly, then bowed her head politely. "I was just checking the window, sir. It didn't seem fully closed." Her voice soft, her eyes lowered. But what bothered Adekunle wasn't her answer. It was the way her hands trembled as she clutched her shirt. From that moment, suspicion took root, creeping, growing like poisonous vines wrapping around his thoughts. Slowly, the smallest things began to look wrong. Zuri always cried when Aisha picked her up. She clung to her father's shirt whenever Aisha appeared near the doorway. Even the sound of Aisha's footsteps passing the hall was enough to make the child shudder. No one else noticed, but he did. Once, when Adekunle called her name, Zuri burst into tears and whispered through broken breaths, "Daddy, don't let her take me, don't let her." His entire body went cold. "Hoo, baby, take you where?" But Zuri only shook her head, tears streaming down her tiny cheeks. Children can't always explain, but children don't lie about fear. And fear like that, it doesn't appear out of nowhere. From that day on, Adekunle watched Aisha more closely. He replayed camera footage, tracked her movements, her routines, the moments she lingered near Zuri's door. No violence, no clear evidence, nothing he could point to, only fragments. Aisha standing too long outside the nursery door, her startled reactions. When he appeared behind her, Zuri screaming the moment the maid stepped inside to clean the toys. Isolated pieces. But a father's instinct doesn't need a full puzzle to recognize danger. That was why he made the boldest decision of his life, one he never imagined making, in a house built with his own hands. He would leave, pretend to travel for a 3-day business trip, but in reality, he would stay, not in his bedroom, not in his office, but inside the hidden surveillance room behind the library, a place only he knew existed. He would watch everything, every step, every whisper, every move Aisha made once she believed he had left Lagos. He needed the truth. He needed to know what had pushed his little girl, his angel, into such unspoken terror. That night, he held Zuri while she slept. She clutched her worn stuffed toy, breathing softly like a fragile butterfly. He leaned down, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Daddy will find out who scared you. Daddy promises." It was no longer suspicion. It was a vow. And the next morning, while the entire mansion believed he was already on a plane to London, Adekinal sat inside the stone-walled hidden room, eyes locked on dozens of surveillance screens, colder and sharper than ever. The game had begun, but he had no idea the thing he was about to witness would shatter his entire world. The steel gate closed behind Adekinal's SUV, its echo rolling across the wide courtyard like the long exhale of a house temporarily at peace. Everyone believed he was on his way to Abuja, the housekeeper, the chef, even Aisha herself, and that was exactly what he wanted. But just 5 minutes later, instead of boarding the plane on his fake itinerary, Adekinal slipped back through the side entrance, quiet as a ghost who knew every inch of the mansion. He moved down the hallway, straight toward the library, a room that smelled of ebony wood, old leet, herb-bound books, and familiar, gentle darkness. His hand slid along the third row of shelves, pushing aside several thick volumes. With a subtle flick of his wrist, the heavy bookcase shifted aside, revealing a steel door beneath. A biometric scanner swept a line of blue light across his retina. Click! The door unlocked, and Adekinal disappeared into a world no one else in the house knew existed. The hidden room measured barely 20 square meters, but it held everything he needed for a silent war. 14 screens plastered across the wall, streaming live footage from every room, every hallway, every shadowed corner of the mansion. Not a single camera was part of the home's official security system. These were his private installations, built for moments when he needed to see what others tried to hide. A folding cot, a stash of instant meals, bottled water, and a personal computer sat neatly along the wall. The room wasn't built for comfort. It was built for truth. And over the next 72 hours, that truth would grind his soul into dust. R7 Aisha took Zuri to the garden. On the monitors, everything looked normal. Aisha smiled as she knelt to tie the child's shoelaces. But something in that smile made Adekinal's skin crawl. It never reached her eyes. Zuri clutched her stuffed bear tightly, eyes red and distant. Every time Aisha stepped closer, the child tensed like a cornered animal. Adekinal's jaw clenched. He forced himself not to roar. No proof. Not yet. He couldn't act on instinct alone. R15 Aisha cleaned Zuri's room, sorting toys, folding tiny clothes, until she suddenly stopped in front of a small doll on the shelf. She picked it up, stared at it, then put it down, but not in its place. She turned its face to the wall, a tiny gesture, easily overlooked. But when Zuri returned and saw the doll turned away, she broke down sobbing. Adekinal felt something tighten around his heart, like a rope being pulled. It wasn't about the doll. It was the way Zuri reacted, as if this wasn't the first time. R28 rain hammered Lagos. Lightning flashed white across the black footage of the exterior cameras. Aisha walked toward the nursery door with a small metal latch in her hand. She looked around. The hallway was empty, but inside the hidden room, Adekinal shot upright, fingers digging into the edge of the desk. She was about to lock Zuri's room from the outside. For what? He whispered, fear shifting into rage. Before she could finish, his wife called her from downstairs. Aisha flinched, stuffed the latch into her pocket, forced a smile, and walked away. Adekinal exhaled hard, lungs tightening like he'd escaped the coils of a python. R41 Zuri slept, but her sleep was never peaceful. She kept jolting awake, whimpering, don't take me. Adekinal watched the monitor, chest burning with helplessness. He wanted to storm upstairs and hold his daughter. But if he broke the plan now, he would lose the truth forever. He needed the full picture, not an explosion of fury. Our 50 Aisha entered Zuri's room, a time when all adults were usually asleep. Adekinal shot upright. The door cracked open. Aisha peered inside, lingering for an uncomfortably long time. Then she stepped in. Zuri slept. She didn't see anything, but Adekinal saw everything from the ceiling camera. Aisha approached the bed, leaned down, and whispered something. The mic didn't catch the words, she was too far, but her voice made the screen feel like a morgue slab. Zuri didn't wake, but her tiny hand clenched the blanket. Aisha stroked the child's hair, then left. No direct harm, no visible violence, but something cold slithered through Adekinal's spine. Our 63 Adekinal stared so long at the screens that his vision blurred. He no longer felt hunger, thirst, or fatigue, only the torment of one question. Act now or wait. Every move Aisha made was a puzzle piece, never a full picture, but each piece dragged him deeper into the abyss. Our 71 dawn approached. A small sound from the nursery made him sit up straight, heart thundering. Not Zuri's voice, not a toy falling, a sharp, restrained hiss, like someone scolding through clenched teeth. The monitor flickered on. Aisha, inside the room. Zuri sat in the corner, trembling violently, eyes wide with terror. Aisha bent down. Her arm swung. The camera didn't show impact, no direct contact, only the shadow of a small leather whip and the chilling whistle it sliced through the air with. Adekinal went completely still, not because he wasn't afraid, but because fear had hardened into something deadlier, absolute, murderous silence. He leaned closer to the screen. His pulse hammered so hard he could barely hear anything. The whip swung again, still off-screen, but Zuri screamed, a strangled, breathless cry as she curled into herself, hands shielding her head. Then, the moment his heart shattered into dust, Aisha screamed, "Shut up!" The words sliced through the mic, sharp as a blade against flesh. Adekinal shot to his feet. No more pretending, no more planning, no more waiting. His 3-day act was over that second. He burst from the hidden room, a man who no longer had patience, excuses, or mercy. 72 hours of hell ended, but the true nightmare was only just beginning. The third night passed like a long, fever-drenched hallucination. The secret room was swallowed in darkness, lit only by the flicker of camera screens, cold, unblinking eyes watching every corner of the mansion. Adekinal wasn't sure if he'd slept at all. Probably not. Every time he drifted off, the echo of Zuri's earlier cries pulled him back, tightening his chest like a vice. And then just when he thought exhaustion had turned him into stone, the sound came, small, faint, but powerful enough to shatter the fragile calm he'd been clinging to for 72 hours. "Mama, no, no," Zuri's voice crackled through the speaker like a breath being strangled. Adekinal lurched upright, eyes blown wide as though someone had thrown cold water in his face. It wasn't the cry of a normal child. It was the cry of someone whose trust in the world had already been broken. He reached for the screen, an instinctive motion, like he could somehow touch his daughter through the glass. "Zuri, Daddy here. Daddy is right. Here." His voice trembled so badly he barely recognized it. But the reply didn't come from his daughter. It came from the person who froze his heart solid. "Aisha," her voice sharp, metallic, scraping across the room like a blade. "I told you to listen, then whip." The leather cut through the air with a vicious hiss that made the secret room seem to drop 10 degrees. The camera didn't catch the impact. It never did. But Zuri curled into herself in the corner of the bed, tiny hands over her head, little legs shaking like they might snap. Adekinal felt something inside him break. He shot to his feet. The office chair crashed backward, slamming onto the floor. But he didn't hear it. All he heard was the whip and his daughter's ragged sobs. His fist smashed against the wall. Thud. Pain burst through his knuckles, sharp, cracking, but he barely registered it. A fire roared through him. Primal, feral. The instinct of an animal whose young was being threatened. Blood trickled down his wrist, dripping onto the keyboard. He gripped the desk until his knuckles turned bone white. "God," his voice fractured. This is why she's been terrified all this time. Tears spilled, not loud, not shaking, but steady, heavy, each drop carrying the weight of months of pain he hadn't seen. He, a man who had signed $100 million contracts, who commanded boardrooms, who shifted markets with a single decision, now trembled like a child betrayed by the world. No amount of power could save him from this one truth. He had failed as a father. Zuri cried, harder, choking between sobs. Mama, Mama, don't. But Aisha took another step forward, casting her shadow over the camera. She said something. The mic didn't catch it, but whatever it was made Zuri recoil, until her back hit the wall. Adekinal screamed, stop it, stop it, but no one heard him from the other side of the house. No one knew he was here, watching his little girl cornered like a wounded bird. He spun around the secret room like a trapped animal. No windows, no quick exit, just a steel door and 16 screens showing hell happening inside his own home. Then the alert flashed. The nursery door slammed shut. Aisha locked it. Zuri screamed, a sound so raw it twisted Adekinal's stomach. Nothing could hold him back now. No plan, no caution. No logic. A sound tore out of him, half roar, half strangled sob. The sound of a lion when its cub is hurt. He lunged at the steel door, unlocking it with shaking hands. He burst into the hallway, sprinting so hard the floorboards rattled beneath him. Only one thought existed in his mind: my baby needs me, right now. No security guard he'd ever hired could have matched his speed. No father on earth stays calm when his child cries like her soul is being torn apart. On the camera feed, another crack of the whip, and that was the moment he lost the last shred of control he'd been holding onto. Pain fused with fury, forging a version of himself he didn't know he had inside. The third night was no longer a night of surveillance. It was a night of confrontation, and Adekinal, a father pushed to the final edge of his humanity, was ready to walk into that nursery, even if the truth waiting on the other side would destroy his family forever. The first sound wasn't crying. It wasn't the whip. It wasn't even a scream for help. It was the sound of a steel mechanism unlocking deep inside the wall. A sound no one in the house had heard in years. Click, thud. The stone wall behind the bookshelf trembled, then slid aside like the jaw of some ancient beast opening wide. Aisha jerked back, face draining of color. She spun around, eyes widening in terror as though she'd just seen a ghost, and in a way, she had. Because the man standing in that doorway was no longer the Adekinal she once knew. His eyes had gone dark, void of warmth, stripped of the calm confidence of a billionaire used to negotiating $100 million deals. This wasn't a businessman. This was a wounded animal, awakened by the sound of his child's cries. The moment Zuri saw him, she bolted from the corner. Her tiny legs stumbled over the rug, but she scrambled up again, running with every ounce of strength she had left as though fleeing the edge of a cliff. Adekinal dropped to his knees, arms open. She crashed into him, clinging to his neck so tightly her small fingers left marks on his skin. Daddy, Daddy, no more. Please, no more. Her broken sobs sliced straight through his chest like a heated blade. He pulled her to him, hand trembling on her back, but when he spoke, his voice was cold as ice. Aisha. The maid staggered backward. The whip slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a sharp, metallic clink that echoed through the room. Sir, I was only teaching her. Her voice warped, trembling, collapsing under fear. Adekinal rose slowly. Zuri stayed wrapped around him, face buried in his chest, still hiccuping through her tears. He laid one large hand on his daughter's back, but his eyes never left Aisha. Teaching, he repeated the word, stepping toward her. His voice dropped like thunder rolling across the earth. You think this is teaching? He tilted his head toward the corner, where Zuri had been shaking, where the small pillow lay crushed, where the whip's shadow still stained the floor like a scar. Aisha opened her mouth, but her lips spasmed. No sound came. She cries too much. I was just. His roar shook the room. Aisha burst into tears, retreating until her back hit the wall. Sir, I didn't hurt her. I just wanted her to listen like that. His voice cracked the air. Zuri squeezed him tighter, her tiny body trembling uncontrollably. Adekinal bent down and picked up the whip. He looked at it for a long, cold moment, a small, simple thing, yet powerful enough to shatter his daughter's world piece by piece. I trusted you. His voice lowered, freezing the room. I trusted you. My wife trusted you. My daughter once trusted you. He lifted his gaze, pain and fury glowing together in his eyes. And this is what you gave in return. He tossed the whip at Aisha's feet. The sound it made this time wasn't metal on tile, it was a verdict. Aisha collapsed to her knees, hands clasped. Sir, please, I am sorry. Don't call me sir. For the first time, his roar ricocheted off the walls and came back at him. Zuri looked up at him, eyes drowning in fear, afraid her father was angry at her. He immediately pulled her closer, kissing her hair. Daddy's not angry at you. Daddy's here. His voice softened for only 1 second. Then he turned back to Aisha, a storm ready to strike. How long, he demanded. How long has this been happening? Why does she flinch when she hears your footsteps? Why does my daughter shake at your shadow? Aisha stammered. And no, it's not like that. I didn't mean to hurt her. You didn't mean to. He let out a bitter, disbelieving laugh. I've been watching you for 3 days. He pointed to the upper corner, where a tiny camera hid inside the light fixture. Aisha saw it, and her face went ghost white. I saw everything. Every glance you made. Every time you crept into her room at night. Every word you whispered to force her silence. Every crack of that whip slicing the air. He stepped closer. Aisha stepped back, but the wall stopped her this time. There was no employer and employee now. There was a father, and the person who had been hurting his child. Aisha broke into sobs, falling to her knees again. I'm sorry. I was under pressure. I didn't mean. Adekinal no longer heard her. In his ears, there was only the sound of Zuri's sobs, a sound he knew would haunt his dreams for the rest of his life. He held her closer. Daddy's here, baby. Daddy's here. Then he looked down at Aisha, and when he spoke, his voice wasn't loud or furious or shaking. It was quiet, deadly, final. Aisha, your mask has fallen off. He stepped one last time, now only a few feet from her. From this moment, you will never touch my daughter again. Not for a second, not for a breath. Aisha trembled like a leaf on the verge of falling, lips turning pale with fear. Adekinal motioned toward the door. Stand up. Step out of my daughter's room. Now no shouting, no threats. Just the command of a man who had reached the end of every limit. Zuri clung to him, whispering in the faintest, fragile breath, Daddy, don't let her. He stroked her back, eyes fixed on Aisha. No, baby. Daddy won't let her. Daddy promises. And with that promise, the nursery, once a room filled with laughter, became a battlefield where a father confronted the person who had harmed his little angel. The storm wasn't over, but at least the door to hell had finally been torn open, and Adekinal would never allow it to close again. Adekinal's command, get out of my daughter's room. Hadn't he even finished echoing through the air when another sound rose from the far end of the hallway. Heavy footsteps, fast, urgent, familiar, security, to guards, and a third rushing up from downstairs. They arrived only seconds after the emergency signal triggered from the secret room, and in all their years working for him, none of them had ever seen Adekinal like this, holding his daughter, trembling, staring at Aisha with eyes stripped of any remaining mercy. Aisha was restrained in one swift movement. She didn't fight. Her body went limp, as if every bit of life had drained from her legs. Her face had turned chalk white. Her lips trembled, opening and closing like every word was stuck in her throat. She knew it was over. There was no excuse left to erase what she had done. No escape now that the father had seen everything she once believed the darkness could hide. Adekinal lifted Zuri higher, one arm beneath her back, the other shielding her head as if the entire world were aiming to hurt her. Zuri buried her face in his shoulder, her tiny fists gripping his shirt like a baby bird just freed from a trap. Her hiccuping sobs, her trembling breaths, her voiceless cries soaked through his shirt, each sound cutting his heart like shattered glass. Daddy, don't let her. Her frantic whisper slammed into him like a nail. Adekinal inhaled sharply, but the breath fractured halfway through. For 3 days he had lived on adrenaline, suspicion, torment, and the fragile hope that he was wrong. But the truth laid bare was more painful than any nightmare. A guard bowed. "Sir, we have her restrained. What would you like us to do?" Adekinal didn't answer immediately. He stared at Aisha kneeling, hands pinned, eyes wild with terror. She tried to speak. "Sir, please, I didn't mean." But Adekinal simply looked at her, the look of a man beyond fear, beyond rage, standing on the far side of heartbreak, where the coldest decisions are made. "I'll speak with the police," he said. Each word dropped, like stone. "And my lawyer." Aisha collapsed fully, her body folding in on itself as though her blood had drained out. The guards carried her away, locking her in the security room downstairs.